Taking a peek at the new infotainment system inside of the Ford Bronco Sport. This is the Sync 4 screen that you're going to find in the 2025 Plus models. If you're in one of the previous gen, the Sync 3 screen, check down in the description of this video for a walkthrough on that one instead. This screen has two different varieties, so they're both 13.2 inch. It's just that one of them has the option for connected navigation, and this one obviously doesn't have that option. Now, there is one downside with the connected navigation, and that's that you have 1 year of service, and after the 1 year, if you don't continue to subscribe to the service, the map just stops working. So it's still going to give you the option of following you around, but you can't input an end destination. But regardless, whether you're on this screen or the one with factory nav as an option, you can hook up over your phone in order to be able to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze through iPhones, and then Google Maps and Waze through Android devices. But I'll show you that one as we get into connecting the phone. But let's dive in and I'll show you what you need to know. So you've got your home icon along the very top. So regardless of whatever page you're on, you can hit the home icon to get back to the home screen. You've also got the option here of being able to adjust the clock out. You've got your current connection level with the outside temperature. And one big thing that came inside of the 2025 Bronco Sport is going to be all of your climate control settings baked right into the screen. I know some people aren't crazy about that option, but one nice thing is that you've got the voice command prompt where you'll be able to do things like change songs, radio stations. You can also adjust the temperature out as well. Takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, you can use your voice for the majority of things inside of the ride. But you've got heated first row seats as an option here for both the driver passenger side. You can put it into an auto mode. You can hit here in order to be able to adjust your temperature out this way, go plus or minus this way instead. And then you've also got your circulation button, auto mode. You can bring up all of your climate controls, so you can have it going to your windshield face feet, some sort of Frankenstein combination of the above instead. You've got your max defroster as well, air conditioning, and this screen only has single zone climate control. So this one, I should say, it's the Big Ben model, but inside of some trim levels, so the highest ones, you're gonna have dual zone climate control instead. So you'd be able to have a different climate for the first row seat for the driver and for the passenger. The rear climate would always default to whatever the driver's side is set to. And we've got audio here. So let's go through and I'll show you the audio side of things and how this works. For sources, you've got AM, FM, SiriusXM, USB stick with MP3s. Let's plug that in. And while that's loading up, let's go through into FM. You can direct tune this way. So if you wanted to, you could tune that way instead if you'd like. So we've got our USB stick coming up in a second. And you've got all of your presets along the very bottom. And it's a mix of AM, FM, or SiriusXM. You don't have the flexibility of deleting the presets unless you do a factory reset, but you can overwrite. So if you just do a push and hold, you can see there that the preset's now saved. And that's for, like I said, AM, FM, SiriusXM. You can kind of do a mix and match. On the steering wheel, you can hit the voice command prompt, 97.7 FM.
Tuning to FM 97.7.
And it's going to change the station out that way. So I love that you've got that flexibility. That's something that was brought forward from the last Sync 3 system. And as you saw there, you can easily overwrite any of the stations. You could do a fine tune for the station this way. You could then also use the right pad on the steering wheel here in order to be able to change between all of your available presets. And then if you do a push and hold there instead, it also acts as a seek button. So it goes fairly slow, which is nice. But honestly, your best bet is just using the voice command prompt in order to change out stations instead. And from here, you've got the option of then jumping into some additional sound settings. So tone settings, you'd be able to change out your treble, mid-range, and bass. I've personally found in this Bronco Sport, the treble up one, mid-range down, with the bass cranked a few points, tends to give pretty good audio, but that's gonna come down to a matter of preference. So what I actually recommend is to play one of your favorite songs and then go through here and adjust the treble, mid-range, and bass in order to be able to find a sound that works perfect for you. Inside of the 2025 Plus Bronco Sport, there are still two different speaker choices that are available. So it's either gonna be a 6-speaker setup or a 10-speaker Bang & Olufsen instead. Inside of all of the screens, you've got the option of doing a balance and fade, driver focused, rear focused, recenter it back to the middle again. Speed compensated volume, so as you go faster or slower, it's automatically going to adjust the volume for you. Do you want it driver focused or focused on all of the seats? And then if you go into SiriusXM, you've got a few more options available. So you can pause the song, you can restart it, You can also give yourself notifications. So if you are a big fan of the artist or the song, you can get a notification. At least that way, if that song or artist are playing on any station on SiriusXM, you're then going to get a notification giving you a heads up that that's available. You can hop back in here in order to get to a series of other options, including the flexibility to adjust your preset pages. You can go up to 5 individual preset pages as well. And you've got all of your SiriusXM settings, listening history, SiriusXM legal, and nothing overly exciting. But you saw there we bumped it up to 5 available preset pages, and there are a boatload of options here. So you can adjust that out, getting into your audio settings from there. So it's straightforward using the media side of things inside of the new Sync 4 screen. Next up is going to be adding in a phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
So you can see there, so no phones are currently connected. So on your phone, what you're going to do is go into your settings, Bluetooth, and you're just looking for Bronco Sport to show up.
Confirm that the pin displayed on Sync matches the pin displayed on
Pins
your
match
device.
up. Do you want to allow access to contacts and favorites? I'm going to say no to that one because this is not my car. So you could technically stop here.
Please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
So you can stop here. You're connected over Bluetooth, so you can make phone calls, and you could also stream audio this way. There's 911 Assist, which I always recommend you turn on. The big reason why is because if you're in a major accident and your phone's connected, it's automatically going to dial 911 for you. So just going to hit finish here. And then the screen also has the option for CarPlay. And one amazing thing inside of this new Sync 4 screen, it's wireless CarPlay instead. So it is technically backwards compatible, so you could use a USB cable instead if you want to, or you do have the flexibility of being able to go wirelessly instead. And we're connecting here. It's going to take a sec. Look at this. Fully connected inside of this screen. You can hit here in order to be able to push out back to SiriusXM, hop back into CarPlay there instead, and then you can hit this icon in order to get to this little split screen. But you see this little guy, this little arrow on the top? If you press that, look at this. Full screen CarPlay, look at that. Love it. You've got your current time, connection level, battery level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last. Then you can get to the home screen or to an icon view instead, and you'll be able to swipe in between, and that is extremely responsive. Now, inside of the screen here, this is always going to be locked into place. So you've always got what map was open last. You've got a few options here. If you didn't have a map open, it would be a search box, your media, and then if you have a calendar notification coming up today, that's going to show up along the bottom. Outside of that, this home screen in CarPlay cannot be modified, but you can do a few things inside of settings. You could turn on driver focus. You can change out your wallpaper instead. So if you don't like the default, you want something darker, something to more suit your style, you've got the flexibility to be able to do that instead. Like that. And then you've got a boatload of options here. So you've got your podcasts that are available. So if you're a podcast listener, you can go that route. There's Hoopla, which is a library app, Live One, which is a radio app. And one thing is that you don't have video playback support inside of Apple CarPlay. I'm waiting for that feature to come. I think it should be here, especially when you're parked, but it's just not available as of yet. But inside of the screen, you've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze, and the app works the exact same way across the board. So there's no pinch to zoom capabilities inside of any of them. I'm personally a bigger fan of using Waze because as you drive, if there are red light cameras, if there are speed traps, if there's construction and things like that, people are really good at marking these things off on the map, and you can mark things off on the map. So if you notice a speed trap, if you notice a crash, hazards on the highway, things like that, you can mark them off yourself. But like I said, no pinch to zoom capabilities there, but there's so much flexibility inside of this screen. And you've also got the option of being able to adjust it out. But before I show you that, on the steering wheel, there's a button here that you can push, and pushing it is going to bring up the assistant for the vehicle. So that's your Sync 4 assistant. But if you do a long push and hold, that's going to bring up your Siri assistant instead. So short button push is going to be for the factory assistant. Your longer button push and hold will be for Siri instead. So it's nice that you've got that available as an option where you can bring Siri up. Then you can also customize this layout. So back on the settings on your phone, you're going to go into Settings, General, CarPlay, you're going to find your vehicle, you can forget it, you can customize it as well. But if you can't even get to this step because CarPlay is not connecting for you, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a comprehensive walkthrough explaining some typical CarPlay fixes that you can try if it's not working for you. And then you've got the flexibility, like I said, to be able to adjust this. So if you want your podcast along the top, if you've got a map application that you really like to use, you can adjust it out. Anything with a minus arrow next to it. So you could remove it from the screen if you want to, but it does save it along the very bottom. So you can add it back in. But let's say if you've played around with the layout too much and you don't like what you've done, on your phone, you can hit reset, in order to bring it back to the factory default layout instead for the icons. Hopping back home brings you back to this home screen. You can button push in order to get back inside. Back home again. If you go into your settings, you've got your phone list, and we've got the iPhone that I've connected to, and then you've got some additional phone settings. Now, this one's grayed out because I'm currently connected to CarPlay. So if I disconnect from CarPlay, hooking back over to Bluetooth instead, go to my phone settings, I've got additional options here so I can manage contacts, ringtones, roaming warnings, and things like that. But it's that straightforward setting up an iPhone inside of the Bronco Sport. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So if you weren't on this screen, because I'm already connected to the iPhone, you'd have the option of connecting a phone or back to your phone list and just add phone along the bottom.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
From here, you can see that Bronco Sport's popped up, so we're just going to give that a second to connect.
Confirm that the pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your
Perfect.
device.
Pin numbers match up, and pairing is successful. Do
For
I
your
want
safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
So I said no to access to my contacts and messages because, again, this is not my car. But you can see here, also wireless Android Auto. So you could connect over USB if you want to, or you can just enable wireless Android Auto instead. So it's going to take a second here. And boom, we are fully connected into Android Auto here. So you've kind of got this little split screen again. You could also go full screen Android Auto if you wanted to. Along the top right side, you've got this little arrow. You're going to push that, and that's going to bring you into a full screen Android Auto setup. Absolutely love the look. Very similar to the iPhone side. So you've got your current connection battery level, your maps with some other applications. You've got your Google Assistant there instead. Same idea, you could do a long button push and hold on the steering wheel in order to be able to turn that assistant on. And then you've also got the option of using Google Maps. So you can see here we've got this little split screen, but if you hit the map icon, that's going to bring you into full screen Google Maps. It's got full pinch to zoom capabilities. You can search for addresses, you can block things as well. So if you wanted to edit your route options, so avoiding highways, toll roads, and ferries, you can mute out notifications, etc. So it's essentially just using Google Maps on your device instead. And from here, if you hit the little icon view, you've got a series of different options here. But I've got Waze installed on this device, but let's say if you've got Waze installed on your phone and it's not showing up, check down in the description of this video because I have put together a walkthrough explaining how to add Waze and other third-party apps onto the device if it's not working for you. You've also got the flexibility of customizing the layout here. So all you're going to do on your device, you're going to search for Android Auto, go into Android Auto settings, and that gives you a bunch of options. But we're looking for Customize Launcher. Anything with a check mark next to it, you can get rid of it, or you can add things in. But unlike the iPhone side of things where this was dynamic, if we make changes, like let's say if we moved Waze to the top and I don't know, maybe we're going to add our phone to the top instead, it's not dynamic same way it was on the iPhone side. So in order for these changes to come into effect, you need to hop back to the home screen. You're going to go into your settings, phone list. You're going to disconnect from Android Auto. You're going to reconnect to Android Auto. There we go. And you're going to hit the icon here, and you can see the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So it's that simple doing it. It's relatively straightforward. Hopping back to the home screen again, into settings and phone list, you've got both phones that have been connected. So you can either be hooked up to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, not both, but you can do a little mix and match for these four. So let's say if you wanted to be connected for the Android for phone calls, but the iPhone for media, you've got the flexibility to do it. So you can, like I said, do a mix and match here. So any of these four, but either or for these. Then you can go into your phone settings, you can delete, and yes. And then if we go into phone settings again, back to the iPhone and delete and yes, and you've now deleted both phones from the vehicle. And it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the Sync 4 screen. And hopping back home from here, you've got a series of other options. So if we jump into settings now, you've got a few different things that you can do. So as of right now, we've got our radio off. So if I turn it back on again, it's jumped into our sound settings that are available, so we can adjust tone, balance, fade, etc. that we saw earlier. There are some vehicle settings, so you can max idle for 30 minutes. Rear occupant alert, with this one turned on, when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to give you a little message in the infotainment system here, letting you know to check the back seats. You can get an alert and the horn, or you can just turn that thing off completely if you wanted to. And you can also mark whether or not you've got a child seat installed for a reminder for you to check the back seat. Remote start's available inside of the ride, and that's on the key fob. You can also use the Ford Pass app on Android and iPhone devices in order to be able to remote start that way. But if you want to walk through on the Ford Pass app and how to set it up, you'll find that down in the description of this video. And there are so many things. So remote start, how long do you want remote start to last? So 5, 10, or 15 minutes. Do you want the seats to come on automatically? So if you've got heated seats in your ride, that would show up. Then you've got options for your wipers, courtesy wipe. There we go. If you've got the wipers going, courtesy wipe at the end of the wipe cycle will go one more time to clear away any excess liquid. Wipers when in reverse. So if you've got your wipers going, your front wipers, you put yourself into reverse, it's automatically going to turn on the rear wiper for you as well. From here, you've got basics for lighting, auto high beam. So the high beams in general inside of the Bronco Sport are interesting. I always recommend keeping auto high beam on because when you're in the auto mode, so just down by your left knee there, so you've got a series of different modes that are available. So with your automatic mode, you can see there we're in auto high beam. So if the vehicle recognizes the high beams are needed, it's automatically going to flip them on for you. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off automatically. If you wanted to permanently lock your high beams out, go into the bottom mode, so your headlamp mode instead. You can then push away to lock them out, pull towards you in order to turn them off if you want to. But I like that auto high beam mode, it works really well. And then there's also the auto lamp delay, so when you go to lock your vehicle, how long do the headlamps stay on for? Basics for locks. Automatically unlock when you park the vehicle, yay, nay. When you go to unlock, is it all doors that become unlocked or strictly the driver's door instead? And then intelligent access. So as long as you've got the fob on you, walk up to the driver door, slide your hand in, and the car will unlock. And then you've got your options for locks as well. Now, some trim levels of the Bronco Sport also have the option to roll the windows down using the fob. If you want to see how that process works, check down in the description of this video. That's the basics for vehicle. Next up for clock. So you can get to clock a few different ways. So either driving down into your settings or by clicking the clock along the top. You can adjust it, minute if you want to. You can change it out to AM, PM. You can go to a 24-hour mode, so if you prefer that military time instead. And then you can also do an auto time update. So that means that the vehicle is going to determine where you are and automatically update the time. There are a bunch of general settings inside of the ride too. So you've got your language. Do you want to be in either English, Spanish, or French? These are all region specific. Temperature, you can change it out to either Celsius or Fahrenheit. So if we turn it on here and drop down, so you could adjust it out this way. From there, you've also got your measurement units. So because we've got a nice digital cluster screen, and you can change yourself out so that you're either measuring your units for either miles or kilometers instead. And that's specifically going to be for your fuel. From here, you can change out your tire pressure. So do you want to be in PSI, KPA, or bar? And the beeping that we're getting here, if you want to turn that off, you can turn it off this way instead. You've got basics. There's a reset option here, so you could reset your Ford Pass app. So if it's giving you problems on your phone or you need to boot somebody off, you can do that. You can also perform a full factory reset, which would fully wipe the screen. There's also the option of doing a soft reboot as well, but I'll show you that one towards the end of the video. And that's the basics of your general. There are some options for the display. So as bright and as beautiful as this thing is, if you find it to be a little bit too excessive, you do have the option of going into a calming screen instead. And then down the center stack here, there's another button that you can push, and that's going to also put you into a calming screen mode instead. You can adjust the brightness of the screen, so you can adjust it out this way. And then just down by your left knee, there's also the option of increasing or decreasing the brightness of the cluster, and then also the infotainment system at the same time. You can figure out what mode you're in. So this is the daytime mode, so you can permanently lock it out to day or night. In the auto mode, the vehicle determines if you're in day or night, just depending on how bright it is. I love that blue look. I would probably lock it out to that permanently myself, but that's going to come down to a matter of preference. You can change out some connectivity options here. So you do have the option for connected vehicle features for your Ford Assistant and things like that. There's some basics for connectivity features, but Bluetooth is where you're going in order to toggle it off or change your vehicle name. So if you don't want it to be Bronco Sport, you want it to be Steve's Ride, you've got the flexibility of changing out your vehicle name this way. There's basics, Wi-Fi, wireless app projection, nothing exciting there. You can look to see what software updates are available, and what I actually recommend, have automatic updates turned on and set a schedule for it to happen later on at night when the car is going to be parked. And the reason why is because updates can take a very long time sometimes. Like it might take 2 to 3 hours to download the update and then install. So always just recommend make sure that you've got your recurring schedule set to something later on at night instead. So I missed mobile apps. You could use additional apps through USB through Android Auto if you want to. I've never found that that works overly well. So your best bet, just connect to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto instead. The Ford Assistant is here. So you remember that little button on the steering wheel, so that little guy. You do a little push, and that's going to give you the flexibility of doing things like change songs, radio stations. You can navigate using your voice as well. But you can, instead of pushing the voice command prompt, have it listen for a wake word. And you can have it listen for any of these options. So rather than pushing the command prompt, you could say, okay, Ford, and it's going to bring it up instead. There's an advanced mode available. That means that you won't get as many notifications. It's just going to do it. So if we say, okay, Ford, 94.9 FM, you can see there, it just does it. It doesn't tell us that it's doing it anymore. And then phone confirmation, do you want to call such and such person, yay or nay? Your command list, okay, Ford, is this list here. So whether or not that one shows up is a matter of preference. And then your command help gives you everything that you can do. So as I mentioned, all of the climate settings are now baked into the screen, but you can automatically change, you can change the temp out using your voice if you want to. You could adjust things out for your apps, for media, if you wanted to play different songs, artists, if you wanted to change stations, things like that, and make phone calls. There are so many things that you can do. So what I'd actually recommend is when you get your Bronco Sport with this screen, dive in to the different settings here and play around with your voice settings, just so you can see what you can do. 911 Assist available here, so you do need to have a phone connected, but if you're in a major accident, it's going to dial 911 for you. And then there's Valet mode. So big benefit of Valet mode, don't use 000, use something difficult. But when you do that, it's essentially going to lock the screen out. So you can still use climate if you want to, but you can't move through the screen until you re-enter that password instead. Like I said, don't use 000. It's a great safety setting overall in order to be able to lock the screen out. Then hopping back home, you've got a series of available features here as well. So some basic driver assistant settings, including changing out cruise control. And cruise control is all going to be done using the pad along the left-hand side of the steering wheel. So you can toggle cruise control on this way. When you do, it's going to let you know inside of the cluster screen that it's turned on. There's a distance indicator here, and that's going to let you know how close or far you are away from the vehicle that's in front of you. I normally recommend level 1 if you're going to be on residential streets or in stop-and-go traffic. And then if you're on the highway, interstate, you might want to be in 2 or 3, unless it's snowing outside, in which case I would say level 4 there instead. Once you get up to the speed that you'd like to, you're going to push either up or down to set your speed. You could then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour at a time, or push and hold up, or push and hold down to get to the nearest 5 kilometers or miles per hour at a time instead. You could hit the brake in order to pause your speed. You can hit the X button in order to pause your speed, and then you can push in the middle button here in order to resume your previously set speed. There's also this one, which is a lane keeping system. So definitely recommend keeping that one turned on. And I'll show you that one in just a second here. But if you want to actually see the cruise control system used in person, check down in the description of this video for a walkthrough on how that's done. So you can either go to either normal cruise or the adaptive cruise instead. So adaptive is exactly that. Let's say if you set it at 100 kilometers an hour on the highway. If the car in front of you starts to slow down, yours will automatically brake. If they change lanes, pick up speed, it's going to pick you back up to your previously set speed. You could go normal cruise control instead though. So the normal cruise is exactly that. Let's say if you set it at 100 kilometers an hour, if the car in front of you slows down, yours will not brake. So I definitely recommend, make sure I normally would say adaptive cruise, but if you hate that stop and go function, you can go normal cruise. Lane centering, if the vehicle recognizes the lane markings, it's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane as you go. It's a really, really smart system. From here, your lane keeping system, so that one button that we saw on the steering wheel. So you've got 3 different options. So if you start to veer over into another lane without signaling, either it's going to give you a little bit of a steering wheel shake and it's going to nudge you into your lane, it's going to nudge you into your lane, or it's going to give you a steering wheel vibration instead. So there's nothing wrong with your alignment, it's just that you're turning into another lane without signaling. And then it's the intensity of that shake. Pre-collision assist, if you're going to be in an accident, it can automatically brake for you. Recommend keeping that one turned on. There's also your rear view camera delay. So if you have the rear view camera going, you start to drive, it's going to keep it on for a few seconds. There's your blind spot system. So if somebody enters the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, that's going to highlight in order to let you know. If you have the blind spot turned off, inside of the cluster screen, you're going to notice that there's a little icon that pops up, just letting you know that you're not protected from that perspective. Cross-traffic alert and braking. If you go to back up and there's somebody coming perpendicular, so from the left or the right side, it's going to let you know of a potential collision and it can automatically brake for you. If you start to veer over too many times without signaling, eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break from driving. I think that was it. Yeah, it's the basics of driver assistance. There's towing options that are available, so trailer sway control. So if you've got a trailer connected, there's sway going on, it's going to automatically apply engine braking in order to get that trailer sway under control. And there's a fully digital owner's manual. So if this video didn't help out, or maybe you're getting some weird messages inside of the cluster screen, you can look through a fully digital owner's manual in order to figure out what's going on. It takes a minute to open up, but you can do a visual search if you want to, where you could zoom into certain things. So if you're getting weird icons inside of the cluster screen, you want to know about when you should change oil, things like that, that's available. And you can hop into the app screen here, which is the option of jumping into either Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, or YouTube. You do need to have connectivity in order to be able to do it, but it is nice that you've got that available as an option. So you could watch a video inside of the ride, but you do need to have an active data plan through Ford in order to make that happen. I just think that's really cool that you've got full video playback support now inside of the screen. Strictly when you're parked, because if you start to drive, that app just would be grayed out and you couldn't use it, but that's pretty cool. Now, if for whatever reason the screen's giving you problems, like let's say if it's frozen up on you, you can't connect to Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, or it's just being glitchy, it's a big device, so you can easily clear the cache if you want to. Like you've got the flexibility of doing a full factory reset, which is the last thing that you want to try to do. The easier thing to do is to push and hold the volume button while you also push and hold the right seek button on the steering wheel. So you're going to push and hold those buttons for a few seconds in order to be able to do a soft reboot instead. So what we're going to do, push and hold that seek button, push and hold the power button for a few seconds. You're going to see there AM FM is going crazy, and eventually it's going to reboot the screen for us. Takes a few seconds to do, but like I said, that's going to essentially get rid of the cache. So it's going to delete the cache, and then any issues that you might be having in the screen, phone's not connecting, if other apps are giving you problems, it's just block you out and you can't do anything in the screen. That's what you're going to do in order to be able to reboot it instead. So it's a soft reboot rather than doing that full factory reset. And then you're going to see here that this is going to go nuts. You can pause it if you'd like to, but that's how you use the infotainment system inside of the new Ford Bronco Sport. If you want walkthroughs on the steering wheel buttons, the cluster, things like that, check down in the description, but that's everything you need to know about the new screen.